Morning all. My name is Alfred Mongai, Piea School of Petroleum Studies Training Coordinator. I'd like to thank you all for joining us on today's membership forum. This is a quarterly engagement which we usually have for all our members. And the reason why we have this membership forum is basically to enlighten and engage our members on the different aspects that are developing in the petroleum sector in and outside the oil and gas industry. For this membership forum, today we have Dimension Data, who are going to take us through the cyber security in the oil and gas sector. And before we start, I'll start off with the safety briefing, and then I'll hand over the microphone to Ishmael Mole from Dimension Data to take over. Kindly keep your microphones on mute as you continue. In line with the industry practice, we'll commence this virtual meeting with a safety briefing. We hope that if you're self-driving, you have come to a complete and safe stop. A safe stop being parking in a well-lit area, where you're not obstructing traffic or being obstructed by other motorists or pedestrians. We also trust that you've identified emergency exit points from the location you're conducting the meeting. And just in case of an emergency, you're familiar with the exit location and emergency assembly point. We also hope that if you're sharing your location, you make sure that you are maintaining a minimum physical distance of at least 2 meters, and also make sure that you have washed your hands with soap and running water for at least 20 seconds. If not, use a hand sanitizer. We also hope that you have taken up the second dose, the first and second dose of the vaccine, and also the booster vaccine at the earliest opportunity available. For the online meeting etiquette, we request you keep your microphones on mute and use the raise hand feature if you have any questions as you go on. I'll hand over the microphone to Ishmael to take over.
Thank you very much, Alfred. First and foremost, I would like to thank all the members for attending this forum. I'd like to thank also being given an opportunity to speak around cybersecurity. I know I have a short time. I'll try to keeping it within that period. With me from Dimension Data is Edwin Kariuki. He looks after a sector, an area known as continuity. Basically, that's focused on ensuring enterprise resilience. I'll try keeping it as brief as possible. I hope I'm audible, Alfred. I know we are required. I hope you can hear me well. In case anything happens, in case there's any disruption, please feel free to alert me. Okay, so let's begin. My name is Ishmael Muli. I look after the intelligent cybersecurity business in Dimension Data. So without further ado,
Ishmael, we lost you for a moment.
Hello, Ishmael? Can you hear me? Oh,
yes,
sorry.
We can hear you now.
I accidentally muted my mic. Sorry, guys. Let me introduce Dimension Data. So Dimension Data is a wholly owned subsidiary of NTT Group, and this has been the case since 2010. NTT is the fourth largest ICT company in the world. Dimension Data has access to capital and financial strength that can really exponentially accelerate our growth in terms of being able to provide solutions to the industry. This slide basically gives more insight on who we are as Dimension Data and in-depth view of the DD NTT organization. We're an $11 billion revenue organization. We are spread across 57 countries with 40,000 plus employees. We put in a lot of money in R&D. We have a dedicated staff of around 5,000 who are in terms of solutions, we offer intelligent solutions around application, collaboration, data center, and security. And how we deliver this is through a consulting-led approach, which focuses on delivering business outcomes for our clients. That said, I'll jump right into it, and I'll start by allowing us to have a look at how we got here in the first place. As you can see from that slide, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. which has led to the term known as Industrial 4.0. The first industrial revolution was based on water and steam and power, which greatly improved manual labor and processes of the old. The second was after the discovery of electricity, and obviously this enabled new scales of mass production. The third was based on automation of single machines and processes. And then the fourth is based on what we call the cyber physical systems and connectivity. So example of cyber security uses of the what you call the cyber physical systems include what you have on the smart grid, infrastructure, a lot of the infrastructure around the oil and gas, the wells, the pipelines. Yeah. So while the 3.0 is focused on the automation of single machines, the processes, Industrial 4.0 was focused on end-to-end digitization and integration of all these physical assets, right? Yes, that said, we've seen a drive towards digitization of the oil and gas industry. And what we can say from this is that ONG has always welcomed technology. However, there are certain challenges around falling oil prices and competitive pressures, which actually forced faster adoption of technology. And a case in point is what we were referring to as the CPS in the previous slide. And that's what is commonly known as the OT or the IoT, which obviously has enabled the industry, the oil and gas industry, to drastically cut costs and replace the manpower. And how they've done, and basically just trying to describe what an IoT is it's basically a machinery that's loaded with sensors, which in turn is connected to the internet, as you can see in that diagram. And then this IoT is what commonly referred to as apply advanced through the cloud. It ensures that it delivers operations and maintenance. There's also leverage on mobile tech. The purpose is for boosting productivity, and it's also provided a means by which the workforce has collaborated effectively in the execution of duties, and this is when they are all remote. Okay. So obviously we are saying now that OT is a critical part and we have the IT aspect of the business, but we're seeing with the emergence of intelligence of this machinery, then it means there's a convergence of OT, rather IT and OT. Well, obviously this brings cost around, it brings value around costs, performance, productivity, and safety. And in turn, we've seen there's an increased, as a result of, obviously there's an aim to, the purpose obviously is to, what do you call it, tap into these benefits for the organization. However, this has in turn brought in some complexity around security, right? And when that happens, then we start seeing such kind of messages in the media. So what we're saying is, with the OT and IT convergence and the increased security complexity comes what we call the cybersecurity exposure and risk. And unfortunately, when IT and OT converges and the security is not adequate or it's not in place at all, then organizations become vulnerable to attacks. And we have a lot of those numerous examples you can see in that slide. And these are actually, what do you call it, media. These are actually media splashes I've gotten from, I mean, what we are getting on a day-to-day basis. So then that was supposed to be delivered by the digital transformation in this sector. And what we're saying is cyber criminals can be motivated by the opportunity to damage, disrupt, and destroy infrastructure for ideological, political, or just for profit. And you see there's right now hacking, especially if when it comes to ransomware, it's become very profitable. So what we're saying is an unsecure, or in conclusion, what we're saying from this slide is that an unsecure OT environment introduces risks and increases the likelihood of successful attack, regardless of whether or not a business OT environment is in fact the desired target. Okay. This slide basically is to show you that there is no sector in the oil and gas that's safe from cyber threats, whether it be upstream, midstream, or downstream. They're all susceptible to. And then that means that we need to take measures to ensure that we secure the entire chain. The purpose of this slide is to give you an appreciation of the cyber threats faced by oil and gas sector as compared to other industrial sectors. For example, if you look at the phishing there, we are saying 77% of all the phishing attack was actually targeted to oil and gas. And that is a very good way of introducing ransomware into the environment. We're also seeing, attacks to steal financial information. We're seeing oil and gas is around 65% of that. So definitely we are saying there's a huge focus in terms of cyber threat attacks that is being faced, that is being targeted towards the ONG. And the question for that, someone might ask why. It's because the oil and gas is a critical infrastructure. And for example, if you see what's happening in Europe, I'm sure you've already heard of a few cases where some pipeline is being sabotaged, and these are actually being delivered by. You find that these are state actors who are state sponsored, targeting critical infrastructure of other organizations. So, unlike the previous World War, or unlike the previous wars, the front line was purely, physical. It means now it's extended into the cyberspace, and we'll see a lot of this as we progress. So this slide shows that the potential vectors or entry points to the OT environment, and I'll try. It's actually animated. So we are saying it could be through through the IT environment, through the DMZ when someone through a phishing attack. We're also saying it could actually through devices that people are plugging into the systems. Yeah, or in some cases you'd find that in some cases it might be intentional, but the slide there basically is trying to show you where the potential the vectors that are in a typical environment that has a significant installation OT deployment basically. So the best way to identify, then that means then as an organization, it's important for us to look at these environments in entirety. And then we need to identify these potential areas of risks and then be able to identify the gaps in the security posture. And the best way, and this is best delivered by addressing what is known as the cybersecurity maturity of the organization. Okay. So that is what has been clear to us basically, and this what you're seeing there is actually a report that was done by NTT, and this was a real-world study, and it's from this often that and ambition. People want to secure it, but they have never taken steps to actually do it, and that's what that report is showing us. And what it's saying is that many businesses still lack the cybersecurity maturity, that they need to confidently be secure against the cyber threats that are faced by their respective industry. Right? So, like I said, it seems it's just an ambition, but if you can see from that there's based on those targets, there's still huge gaps that need to be addressed. And you find that the reason for this is that there are many business drivers that are actually impeding this, and this could be around cost, compliance, and also resources. Yeah. So in order to us to close this gap, we are saying then a focus must be placed on the maturity of the process, the tools, and then we need to get a lot of the executive support, right? So at the end of it, what do I say? We are saying this is what we need to be focused on going forward as organizations in this sector. One, we need to mature organizations' approach to as far as secure by design is concerned, implying any infrastructure that we put in place, then security must be at the center of it. It needs to be at the core of it. It should not be an afterthought where we're saying you will roll out your OT and then as you go along, you try and see how you'll incorporate security. No, it needs to be designed with security in place at the beginning. And then the other areas that we need to pursue what is known as intelligence-driven cybersecurity. Intelligence-driven cybersecurity is where we're saying we need to harness the power of the threat intel organizations out there. They willingly share information with us and they notify us of the attacks or what you call the impending threats, the threats that are actually that have new threats and the threats that are actually spreading and what is happening as far as cybersecurity is concerned within our respective industry. The other one is we need to continuously monitor the threat in our environment by having a good a mature security operations center, whether in-house or outsourced. We need to subscribe to some form of SOC that will continuously monitor our environment. When it comes to security, it's not an issue whether or not you'll ever get hacked. It's a matter of when. And once you get hacked, the most important, how soon can you identify this threat and how soon can you mitigate before it spreads and causes an increased a severe damage to the organization, especially if you're talking about something like ransomware or sabotage like oil wells or oil pipeline. The other thing then, there's a need to focus on the standardization of control, implying that any controls we put in place is actually is based on what has been developed, is based on the security frameworks specifically developed for that industry. In this case, we're saying being an asset intensive organization, it implies then we need to ensure that our controls are based, our security controls actually, we apply security controls developed and designed for oil and gas sector where we have a lot of OT deployment. That said, we as Dimension Data, how can we help? Sorry, if you can move too fast. We as Dimension Data can actually help you. And how we do that is we consult with you to understand, to identify the gaps and the risk analysis. And the risk within your organization based on those, the different security frameworks. And then from there, we develop a strategy on how we can actually bridge this gap. And that strategy is what we call a cybersecurity roadmap. And then we also help you develop design and architecture around based on that can be actually that can actually be deployed. We can help you deploy this or supervise the deployment of whatever architecture that needs to be placed. We also do controls. The controls that are in place, we need to integrate. We need to have them talking to each other, sharing information, and we need them to be effective. And then at the end of it all, we can help you manage and operate this security architecture that has been put in place for your organization. That said, I come to the end of this presentation. I tried keeping it within that timeline. So if there are any questions, please free to ask. You can type it in there, or if you have any comments that you need to make or feel free. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Little. If you have any question, the audience. Any questions from the audience? Okay. Since there are no questions, but basically, cybersecurity is a key element in the oil and gas sector, and it's important for all our members and also individuals to make sure that they observe cybersecurity hygiene in all their in their day-to-day use, be it their maybe their mobile phones or maybe their computers at home. So it's something that people should make sure that they are able to observe in their duties. That's why we saw the need to make sure that we have this membership forum, specifically focusing on cybersecurity. So since there are no questions from the chat section, and also on no one is raising their hands so far, I'd like to maybe just say the video forum will be available on our YouTube channel, and I'd like to showcase our YouTube channel, which is basically Petroleum Institute of East Africa. I'd like to encourage members to subscribe to it, share, because we have more content coming up for you guys, so that you can be able to engage further and be able to be learning more content as you go on. With those few remarks, I'd like to say thank you all and have a good afternoon. The presentation will be shared in the course of the day once we finalize on it. Thank you all and have a good afternoon. And also the next membership forum will be on 27th of April. We are going to share the same on your emails, and you'll see on the as a calendar. Thank you all and have a good morning and afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Alfred. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.